hearing has brought together more than 50 people to sit inside of a closed-door room for hours while our nation is facing a deadly airborne virus. This committee has ignored common sense requests to keep people safe, including not requiring testing for all members, despite a coronavirus outbreak among senators of this very committee. By contrast, in response to this recent Senate outbreak, the leaders of Senate Republicans rightly postponed business on the Senate floor this week to protect the health and safety of senators and staff. Mr. Chairman, for the same reasons, this hearing should have been postponed. The decision to hold this hearing now is reckless and places facilities workers, janitorial staff, and congressional aides and Capitol Police at risk. Not to mention that while tens of millions of Americans are struggling to pay their bills, the Senate should be prioritizing coronavirus relief and providing financial support to those families. The American people need to have help to make rent or their mortgage payment. We should provide financial assistance to those who have lost their job and help parents put food on the table. Small businesses need help, as do the cities, towns, and hospitals that this crisis has pushed to the brink. The House bill would help families and small businesses get through this crisis. But Senate Republicans have not lifted a finger for 150 days, which is how long that bill has been here in the Senate, to move the bill. Yet, this committee is determined to rush a Supreme Court confirmation hearing through in just 16 days. Senate Republicans have made it crystal clear that rushing a Supreme Court nomination is more important than helping and supporting the American people who are suffering from a deadly pandemic and a devastating economic crisis. And jamming President Trump's nominee through the Senate while people are actually voting, just 22 days before the end of the election. More than 9 million Americans have already voted, and millions more will vote while this illegitimate committee process is underway. A clear majority of Americans want whomever wins this election to fill this seat, and my Republican colleagues know that. Yet, they are deliberately defying the will of the people in their attempt to roll back the rights and protections provided under the Affordable Care Act. And let's remember, in 2017, President Trump and congressional Republicans repeatedly tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. But remember, people from all walks of life spoke out and demanded Republicans stop trying to take away the American people's health care. Republicans finally realized that the Affordable Care Act is too popular to repeal in Congress. So now they are trying to bypass the will of the voters and have the Supreme Court do their dirty work. That's why President Trump promised to only nominate judges who will get rid of the Affordable Care Act. This administration, with the support of Senate Republicans, will be in front of the Supreme Court on November 10th to argue that the entire Affordable Care Act should be struck down. That's in 29 days that'll happen. And that's a big reason why Senate Republicans are rushing this process. They are trying to get a justice onto the court in time to ensure they can strip away the protections of the Affordable Care Act. And if they succeed, it will result in millions of people losing access to health care at the worst possible time, in the middle of a pandemic. 23 million Americans could lose their health insurance altogether. If they succeed, they will eliminate protections for 135 million Americans with pre-existing conditions like diabetes and asthma, heart disease, or cancer, a list that now will include over 7 million Americans who have contracted COVID-19. Insurance companies could deny you coverage or could sell you a plan that won't pay a dime toward treating anything related to your pre-existing condition. If the Affordable Care Act is struck down, you will have to once again pay for things like mammograms and cancer screenings and birth control. Seniors will pay more for prescription drugs, and young adults will be kicked off of their parents' plans. And these are not abstract issues. We need to be clear about how overturning the Affordable Care Act will impact the people we all represent. For example, Micah, who is 11 years old, and she lives in Southern California. So Micah enjoys being a Girl Scout, and ice skating, and reading, and eating pasta, and baking. Her mother says the only reason Micah is able to live her life as she does now is because the Affordable Care Act guarantees that her health insurance cannot deny her coverage or limit her care because it's too expensive. You see, Micah has a congenital heart defect. She goes to multiple specialists throughout the year and gets an MRI with anesthesia every 6 months. At just 11 months old, Micah's family had already hit $50,000 in medical expenses, and her biannual MRI cost were $15,000 a session. And so, correction, by 11 months old, her family had hit $500,000 in medical expenses. If Republicans succeed in striking down the Affordable Care Act, insurance companies will be able to deny coverage for children with serious conditions, children like Micah. And parents, well, they'll be on their own. No one should face financial ruin to get their child or their spouse or their parent the care they need. And no family should be kept from seeing a doctor or getting treatment because an insurance company says that the treatment is too expensive. In America, access to health care should not be determined based on how much money you have. Health care and access to health care should be a right. Micah and millions of others who are protected by the Affordable Care Act know this is fundamentally what is at stake with this Supreme Court nomination. And of course, there's more at stake. Throughout our history, Americans have brought cases to the United States Supreme Court in our ongoing fight for civil rights, human rights, and equal justice. Decisions like Brown versus Board of Education, which opened up educational opportunities for Black boys and girls. Roe versus Wade, which recognized a woman's right to control her own body. Loving v. Virginia, and Obergefell v. Hodges, which recognized that love is love, and that marriage equality is the law of the land. The United States Supreme Court is often the last refuge for equal justice when our constitutional rights are being violated. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg devoted her life to fight for equal justice, and she defended the Constitution. She advocated for human rights and equality. She stood up for the rights of women. She protected workers. She fought for the rights of consumers against big corporations. She supported LGBTQ rights, and she did so much more. But now, her legacy and the rights she fought so hard to protect are in jeopardy. By replacing Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg with someone who will undo her legacy, President Trump is attempting to roll back Americans' rights for decades to come. Every American must understand that with this nomination, equal justice under law is at stake. Our voting rights are at stake. Workers' rights are at stake. Consumer rights are at stake. The right to a safe and legal abortion is at stake. And holding corporations accountable is at stake. And again, there's so much more. So, Mr. Chairman, I do believe this hearing is a clear attempt to jam through a Supreme Court nominee who will take health care away from millions of people during a deadly pandemic that has already killed more than 214,000 Americans. I believe we must listen to our constituents and protect their access to health care and wait to confirm a new Supreme Court justice until after Americans decide who they want in the White House. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
This committee is gathered today for what I consider one of its most solemn duties and one that I take very seriously. Federal judges, senators, the President of the United States, we all take an oath to uphold the Constitution. We make promises to do justice, to tell the truth. At its core, That's what judges do, right? Figure out the truth, figure out justice. My mom, a second grade teacher, spent her life teaching little kids what was right or wrong, what was true or false. I still believe it matters, and so do the American people. But we are dealing with a president who doesn't think truth matters. And he has allies in Congress who in the past defended our democracy, but are now doing his bidding. Senators who clearly set out that the president, a precedent that the president in an election year should wait, that we should have an election, and that then the people choose the president, and the president chooses the nominee. That was your precedent. It has been said that the wheels of justice turn slowly, and justice, on the other hand, can move at lightning speed, as we are seeing here today. We cannot, and you watching at home should not, separate this hearing from the moment we are in and from the judge he is trying to rush through. To respond to Senator Cruz, this isn't a rush to justice. This is a rush to put in a justice whose views are known and who will have a profound impact on your life. And yes, these policies that the court decides, they matter. Where you can go to school, who you can marry, decisions you can make about your own body, and yes, your health care. The president knows this. We have a president who has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power after an election. Every candidate does that, but not this guy. We have a president who has fired or replaced 5 inspector generals, Senator Grassley, who has fired an attorney general, an FBI director, and is now going after their replacements. We have a president who divides our country each and every day. He has called our military suckers and losers. He's refused to condemn white supremacists, and he has the gall to hold up a Bible as a prop in front of a church instead of heeding its words, to act justly. And now he says this election will end up in court. Why, Senator Cruz? Does President Trump matter? He is putting the Supreme Court in place, in his words, to, quote, look at the ballots, end quote. Well, I won't concede that this election is headed to the court because you know at home exactly what the president is up to. That's why you're voting. That's why you are voting in droves. Why are you voting? Well, you know that your rights, your health care is on the line. You know that they are trying to push through a justice who has been critical of upholding the Affordable Care Act, and they're doing it in the middle of a pandemic. And you can see here in this room the misplaced priorities of this Republican-run Senate, and it's in your hands to change it. Are they working to pass a bill to help Americans to get the testing they need to save their lives? Are they working to help the moms trying to balance a toddler on their lap while balancing a laptop on their desk? Are they trying to help our seniors isolated, missing graduations and birthdays? Are they passing the bill the House passed that would help our economy? That's not the priority. Instead, they choose to do this. So no, we cannot divorce this nominee and her views from the election we are in. We didn't choose to do this now, to plop a Supreme Court nomination hearing in the middle of an election. They did. So the reason people aren't going to fall for this is because it is so personal. The over 210,000 people who have died, the school canceled, the small business closed, the job you don't have, the degree you couldn't get. It's personable to me because my husband got COVID early on. He ended up in the hospital for a week on oxygen with severe pneumonia. And months after he got it, I find out the president knew it was airborne, but he didn't tell us. We were cleaning off every surface in our house, and my husband got it anyway. We didn't know. And my dad, at 92, he got it in his assisted living. I stood there outside his window in a mask, and he looked so small and confused. He knew who our family was, but he didn't know what was going on. I thought it was going to be the last time that I saw him. He miraculously survived. But Marnie Zhang, she didn't. Marnie was a rising star, the chairwoman of the St. Paul School Board in just 31 years when COVID took her life. Her dad felt sick. She went with him to the hospital because he was scared. and then she got sick, never got off a ventilator, and died. The daughter of Hmong refugees whose parents fled Laos to a refugee camp in Thailand before arriving in Minnesota. Marnie and her 7 siblings grew up in St. Paul. Their family, the American dream. This is who this virus has taken from us. Someone who has left behind a mother and a father and 7 siblings who loved her, and someone who undoubtedly would have made the world a better place. The president could have saved so many lives. Instead, he's been reckless, packing people in without masks for your nomination party, Judge Barrett. 35 people got sick. The president himself ends up in the hospital, and when he leaves Walter Reed still contagious, he defiantly takes off his mask and walks into the White House. And then he lies and says the virus will magically go away. The truth matters. And the truth is, America, that this judicial nominee has made her views so clear, and this president is trying to put her in a position of power to make decisions about your lives. The Affordable Care Act protects you from getting kicked off of your insurance. That's on the line. The president has been trying to get rid of Obamacare since he got in power. John McCain went in and stopped it with that big thumbs down. Then they went and brought a case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they're now trying to stack the deck against you right now. The last time this was before the court in a big way was when Justice Roberts, not exactly a blazing liberal, voted the same as Justice Ginsburg to uphold the Affordable Care Act. And this nominee, she criticized him. This is a judgeship that was held by an icon who voted to protect your health care, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Her last fervent wish was that a new president, the winner of this election, would pick her replacement. When you look at her opinions, you realize she wasn't just writing for today, she was writing for tomorrow. To the women of America, we have come so far, and in the name of RBG, we should not go backwards. As the rabbi said at Justice Ginsburg's memorial in the Capitol, her dissents, her strong words when she would disagree with the Republican-appointed justices, her words were never cries of defeat. They were blueprints for the future. So to all Americans, this hearing, whatever these guys try to do, whatever you hear from me, it will not be a cry of defeat. It will instead be our blueprint for the future. Yes, Judge, I think this hearing is a sham. I think it shows real messed up priorities from the Republican Party. But I am here to do my job, to tell the truth. To all Americans, we don't have some clever procedural way to stop this sham, to stop them from rushing through a nominee, but we have a secret weapon that they don't have. We have Americans who are watching, who work hard every day, believe in our country and the rule of law, whether they are Democrats, Republicans, or independent. They know what this president and the Republican Party are doing right now is very wrong. In fact, 74% of Americans think we should be working on a COVID relief package right now instead of this. Let me tell you a political secret. I doubt that it will be a brilliant cross-examination that's going to change this judge's trajectory this week. No, it is you. It is you calling Republican senators and telling them enough is enough, telling them it is personal, telling them they have their priorities wrong. So do it. And it is you voting even when they try to do everything to stop you. It is you making your own blueprint for the future instead of crying defeat. So do it. This isn't Donald Trump's country. It is yours. This shouldn't be Donald Trump's judge. It should be yours. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What can you say about Justice Ginsburg? She was confirmed 96-3. Now, those were days that have since passed. I regret that. 96-3. Now, this was a person who worked for the ACLU, someone who was known in progressive circles as an icon. Apparently, just about every Republican voted for her. Her good friend on the court, Justice Scalia, I think got 97 votes. I don't know what happened between then and now, I guess we can all take some blame, but I just want to remind everybody there was a time in this country where someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg was seen by almost everybody as qualified for the position of being on the Supreme Court, understanding that she would have a different philosophy than many of the Republicans who voted for her. In my view, the person appearing before this committee is in a category of excellence, something the country should be proud of, and she will have a chance to make her case to be a worthy successor and to become the 9th member of the Supreme Court of the United States. On September the 26th, Judge Amy Barrett was nominated by President Trump to the Supreme Court. Who is she? She is a judge sitting on the 7th Judicial Circuit. She's highly respected. She was a professor at Notre Dame. 3 years during that tenure, she was chosen by the students to being the best professor, which I'm sure is no easy task at any college. She's widely admired for her integrity. She grew up in New Orleans, graduated from Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee in 1994, graduated summa cum laude and first in her class from Notre Dame Law School in 1997. So academically, she's very gifted. She clerked for Judge Lawrence Silberman on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, and then for Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court. She practiced law in Washington, D.C. She joined the faculty at Notre Dame in 2002. She's published numerous articles in prestigious journals, including the Columbia, University of Virginia, and Cornell Law Review. She's been a circuit court judge at the 7th Circuit since 2017. She was confirmed to that position with a bipartisan vote. She has heard hundreds of cases in that capacity. She said, "I clerked for Justice Scalia more than 20 years ago, but the lessons I learned still resonate. His judicial philosophy is mine. A judge must apply the law as written. Judges are not policymakers, and they must be resolute in setting aside any policy views they might hold." She will give her statement, but I think that is a good summary of who she is. That's who Amy Barrett is in terms of the law. In terms of Amy Barrett, the individual, she and her husband have 7 children, 2 adopted. So 9 seems to be a good number. The process. This is an election year. We're confirming the judge in an election year after the voting has occurred. What will happen is that my Democratic colleagues will say, this has never been done, and they're right in this regard. Nobody's, I think, has ever been confirmed in an election year past July. The bottom line is Justice Ginsburg, when asked about this several years ago, said that a president serves for 4 years, not 3. There's nothing unconstitutional about this process. This is a vacancy that's occurred through a tragic loss of a great woman, and we're going to fill that vacancy with another great woman. The bottom line here is that the Senate is doing its duty constitutionally. As to Judge Garland, the opening that occurred with the passing of Justice Scalia was in the early part of an election year. The primary process had just started. And we can talk about history, but here's the history as I understand it. There's never been a situation where you had a president of one party and the Senate of another, where the nominee, the replacement, was made in an election year. It's been over 140 years ago. I think there have been 19 vacancies filled in an election year. 17 of the 19 were confirmed to the court when the party of the president and the Senate were the same. In terms of timing, The hearing is starting 16 days after her nomination. More than half of all Supreme Court hearings have been held within 16 days of the announcement of the nominee. Stevens 10, Rehnquist 13, Powell 13, Blackmun 15, Berger 13. All I can say is that I feel that we're doing this constitutionally, that our Democratic friends object to the process. I respect them all. They'll have a chance to have their say. But most importantly, I hope we will know more about how the law works, checks and balances, what the Supreme Court is all about when this hearing is over. Why hold this hearing? A lot of people on our side say just ram it through. I hear that a lot. That's why I don't listen to the radio much anymore. So the bottom line is I think it's important. This is a lifetime appointment. I would like the world and the country to know more about Judge Barrett. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I think you're a great choice by the president. This is probably not about persuading each other unless something really dramatic happens. All Republicans will vote yes and all Democrats will vote no. And that will be the way the breakout of the vote. But the hearing is a chance for Democrats to dig deep into her philosophy, appropriately ask her about the law, how she would be different, what's on her mind. It gives Republicans a chance to do the same thing. Most importantly, it gives you a chance, the American people, to find out about Judge Barrett. Judge for yourself. Is this person qualified? Is she as qualified as Sotomayor and Kagan? I think so. These were two nominees presented to the committee by President Obama. They had a different legal philosophy than my own, but I never doubted one moment that they were not qualified. I thought Gorsuch and Kavanaugh were qualified. The Senate in the past has looked at qualifications more than anything else. We've taken a different path at times. Bork, Thomas, Alito, Kavanaugh. I hope we don't take that path with Judge Barrett. She doesn't deserve that. I don't think it makes this hearing any better. And the American people, I believe, would not deserve a repeat of those episodes in the Senate Judiciary Committee's history. To my Democratic colleagues, I respect you all. We've done some things together, and we've had some fights in this committee. I've tried to give you the time you need to make your case, and you have every right in the world to make your case. I think I know how the vote's going to come out, but I think Judge Barrett is required for the good of the nation to submit to your questions and ours. This is going to be a long, contentious week. I would just ask one thing of the committee. To the extent possible, let's make it respectful. Let's make it challenging. Let's remember the world is watching. Senator Feinstein.
Behind me, Merritt Bowman is a 49-year-old father of twin boys, which you could see, and a football coach and paraprofessional at Deptford High School in New Jersey. For years, Merritt put off going to the doctor because he was, like many Americans, afraid he could not afford it. But when the Affordable Care Act was passed, he finally got the coverage he could afford. 4 years ago, after not feeling well, Merritt made the doctor's appointment and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a disease that affects over 10% of Americans and disproportionately impacts Black Americans like Merritt, who are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes and twice as likely to die from it. Today, Merritt takes insulin and other medications, and his condition has thankfully improved. Merritt said, and I quote, "Obamacare made it so I was not afraid of the costs of going to the doctor. If I didn't have insurance and didn't get diagnosed, who knows where I would be right now." But Merritt is worried about what will happen if the Affordable Care Act gets overturned. He said, and I quote, "Now I have a pre-existing condition. My insurance covers my medications, my equipment to monitor my diabetes. If that's taken away from me, what's going to happen? I can't afford those on my own." Michelle Luris from Palisades Park, New Jersey, lost her husband, John, last year when he passed away suddenly at the age of 58. Michelle relied on health insurance through John's job, but when he died, their insurance went away. She was given the option to continue his plan, but she couldn't afford the cost of $800 a month. So Michelle signed up for coverage on the insurance marketplace, where she qualified for a subsidy that made it more affordable. Today, she's insured and she can manage her diabetes, heart disease, and an autoimmune disease because of her coverage. Like Barrett, Michelle also relies on insulin and other prescription medications. If the ACA was overturned, Michelle said, quote, "I could lose my house if I didn't have affordable health care. I would have to sell my home. I like where I live. I don't want to lose my home." People like Barrett and Michelle are understandably scared right now. President Trump has told America he would end the ACA. He promised explicitly that he would only nominate judges that would do the right thing and eliminate the Affordable Care Act. People like Barrett and Michelle know what a future without the ACA looks like. It looks like 130 million Americans with pre-existing conditions, from cancer survivors to people with disabilities, being charged more or denied coverage completely. It looks like 20 million Americans losing their access to potentially life-saving care in the middle of a pandemic that's already killed over 214,000 Americans. In New Jersey, we've lost over 16,000 people to COVID-19. 595,000 people would lose their coverage without the ACA. For millions of Americans, a future without the ACA looks like being forced to sell your house if you can't afford your health care. It looks like not having access to a doctor when you're sick. It looks like having to choose between paying for groceries and paying for medicine. And people are scared right now for another reason, because they know what a future without the protections of Roe v. Wade looks like, because President Trump has explicitly stated that he would only put up Supreme Court nominees that would overturn Roe v. Wade. He said it clearly. We should believe him. And that, without Roe v. Wade, our country looks like people being denied the ability to make decisions about their own bodies, not just while they're pregnant, but being stripped of the right to plan for their futures. It looks like women of color, low-income women, and women living in rural areas who can't just pack up and leave if abortion is restricted or criminalized where they live. It looks like them being left with no options. It looks like state laws proliferating throughout our country that seek to control and criminalize women. It looks like the government interfering with women making the most personal medical decisions. It looks like a country in which states may write laws that could subject women who have miscarriages to investigations to ensure they didn't have abortions. In America today, people are scared. You've heard from my colleagues, we're getting calls to our office where people are afraid. More than 214,000 Americans have died, many of them isolated and alone, away from friends and families. Tens of millions of jobs have been lost. 1 in 3 American families with children aren't getting enough food to eat. More than 100,000 small businesses have closed permanently. Lines at food banks in the wealthiest nation on the planet have stretched for miles. We could be, as the Senate, we should be, as the Senate, working in a bipartisan way to try to get this virus under control, to get relief to people who are hurting, who are struggling, who are afraid, to help people who are unemployed, to let doctors and nurses and hospital staffs putting their lives on the line right now in state after state where COVID is rising, know that we have their backs in a pandemic. But instead of doing anything to help people who are struggling right now, we are here. We're here. I'm so glad, I'm really glad that my colleagues who contracted COVID-19 at the Rose Garden super spreader event for Judge Barrett had access to the care that you and your families needed. That is right. This is a blessing. The problem is the people who will come through here today to wipe down the desks and empty the garbage, that will vacuum the floor, like people all over our country who are working today in factories, teaching children in schools. They don't have direct line to the nation's top health experts. They can't show up to work sick, and they might not have space to distance themselves at home to protect their families. We literally stopped the Senate from functioning with the exception of this hearing. That's why we're here. We're not just 22 days from an election. We're in the middle of an ongoing election when millions of people have already started voting because Donald Trump and most of my Senate Republican colleagues know the truth. They won't be able to get away with this after the American people have spoken in this election. Donald Trump and my Senate Republican colleagues in this room today know that the American people don't want the ACA overturned. Donald Trump and my Senate Republican colleagues know that the majority of Americans actually don't want Roe v. Wade overturned, that the majority of Americans don't want to see abortion criminalized in our states. But that is exactly why we are here today, because Donald Trump and Senate Republicans know that the American people don't want this, so they have to act now. They don't trust the American people, which is so painful because that's what they said. They said we should trust the American people, and what the American people say under President Obama 269 days from an election. And then, after that election, they tried time and time again to overturn the Affordable Care Act, but a handful of Republicans stopped them. You see, they tried in the Senate, they tried in the House, over 70 attempts to rip down the Affordable Care Act, but now Donald Trump has said explicitly he's going to do it through the courts by making the nomination we see here today. That's why we are here. The American people should know that that is what this is all about, rushing this nomination through to sit a Supreme Court justice in time to hear a case before the Supreme Court that will end the Affordable Care Act. We're here because in the middle of a deadly pandemic, in the middle of an ongoing election, Senate Republicans have found a nominee in Judge Barrett who they know will do what they couldn't do, subvert the will of the American people and overturn the ACA and overturn Roe v. Wade. That's what this is about. That's why we're here. It's very simple. Senate Republicans know the American people don't want this, but they don't care because they have only one small window of opportunity to work the system, betray what the American people want. And so they're desperately rushing to complete this process before America starts voting, but they don't have to do this. If one of my colleagues will stand up on this committee, we can hold this over until after an election. If two of my colleagues on the Senate floor agree with their other two colleagues, Republicans, we can stop this. Otherwise, this is a charade when they say this is a normal Judiciary Committee hearing for a Supreme Court nomination. There's nothing about this that's normal. It's not normal that Senate Republicans are rushing through a confirmation hearing, violating their own words, their own statements, betraying the trust of the American people and their colleagues, and failing to take in this hearing even the most basic safety protections to protect people around them, all to ensure that tens of millions of people will lose their health care when we're 7 months into one of the worst public health crises in the history of our country. It's not normal. This is not normal that millions of Americans like Michelle and Merritt aren't just scared of a deadly virus. They're scared of their fellow Americans who are sitting in this room right now. They're scared that their government and their institutions will be manipulated by people who could not work through the democratic process to take away their health care and are trying an end run to achieve that. Nothing about this today is normal. This is not normal. What is going on in America today, in the midst of a deadly pandemic and an ongoing election, having a rushed Supreme Court nomination hearing is not normal, and we cannot normalize it. People are voting right now. The American people should decide. The American people should decide. The American people should decide. I will not be voting to confirm Judge Barrett's nomination.
Thank you. Senator Crapo.
I would like to submit a letter for the record, if I may. We should not be rushing, as I said, this process. My colleagues agree with me that we should be working to protect the health and safety of Americans across the country and taking the precautions, greater precautions in this workplace. I'd like to enter into the record a letter from Senators Leahy, Senator Harris, and myself that we sent to the chairman last week asking that these hearings not proceed without proper testing measures, without all of us being tested, and a COVID safety protocol being put into place.
Thank you. Without objection.
I'm honored and humbled to appear before you today as a nominee for Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. I thank the President for entrusting me with this profound responsibility, as well as for the graciousness that he and the First Lady have shown my family throughout this process. I thank Senator Young for introducing me, as he did at my hearing, to serve on the 7th Circuit. And I also thank Senator Braun for his support. And while she could not be with us via the satellite, I am also grateful to former Dean Patty O'Hara of the Notre Dame Law School. She hired me as a professor nearly 20 years ago, and she has been a mentor, colleague, and friend ever since. I thank the members of this committee and your other colleagues in the Senate who've taken the time to meet with me since my nomination. It's been a privilege to meet you. As I said when I was nominated to serve as a justice, I'm used to being in a group of 9, my family. Nothing is more important to me, and I'm very proud to have them behind me. My husband, Jesse, and I have been married for 21 years. He has been a selfless and wonderful partner every step of the way. I once asked my sister, "Why do you think marriage is hard? People are always saying that." "I think it's easy." And she looked at me and said, "Well, maybe you should ask Jesse if he agrees with that." I decided not to take her advice because I know that I am far luckier in love than I deserve. My parents modeled for me and my 6 siblings a life of service, principle, faith, and love. I remember preparing for a grade school spelling bee against a boy in my class, and to boost my confidence, my dad saying, "Anything boys can do, girls can do better." And at least as I remember it, I spelled my way to victory. I received similar encouragement from the devoted teachers at St. Mary's Dominican, my all-girls high school in New Orleans. When I went to college, it never occurred to me that anyone would consider girls less capable than boys. My freshman year, I took a literature class filled with upperclassmen English majors. And when I did my first presentation, which was on Breakfast at Tiffany's, I feared I had failed. But my professor took the time to talk to me. She filled me with confidence about how well I had done, and she became a mentor. And when I graduated with a degree in English, she gave me Truman Capote's collected works as a gift. Although I considered graduate studies in English, I decided that my passion for words was better suited to deciphering statutes than novels. I was fortunate to have wonderful legal mentors. In particular, the judges for whom I clerked. The legendary Judge Lawrence Silberman of the D.C. Circuit gave me my first job in the law, and he continues to teach me today. He was by my side during my 7th Circuit hearing. He swore me in at my investiture, and he's cheering me on from his living room right now. I also clerked for Justice Scalia, and like many law students, I felt like I knew the justice before I ever met him because I had read so many of his colorful, accessible opinions. More than the style of his writing, though, it was the content of Justice Scalia's reasoning that shaped me. His judicial philosophy was straightforward. A judge must apply the law as it is written, not as she wishes it were. Sometimes that approach meant reaching results that he did not like. But as he put it in one of his best-known opinions, that is what it means to say that we have a government of laws and not of men. Justice Scalia taught me more than just law. He was devoted to his family, resolute in his beliefs, and fearless of criticism. And as I embarked on my own legal career, I resolved to maintain that same perspective. There's a tendency in our profession to treat the practice of law as all-consuming while losing sight of everything else. But that makes for a shallow and unfulfilling life. I worked hard as a lawyer and as a professor. I owed that to my clients, to my students, and to myself. But I never let the law define my identity or crowd out the rest of my life. A similar principle applies to the role of courts. Courts have a vital responsibility to the rule of law, which is critical to a free society. But courts are not designed to solve every problem or right every wrong in our public life. The policy decisions and value judgments of government must be made by the political branches, elected by and accountable to the people. The public should not expect courts to do so, and courts should not try. That is the approach that I have strived to follow as a judge on the Seventh Circuit. In every case, I have carefully considered the arguments presented by the parties, discussed the issues with my colleagues on the court, and done my utmost to reach the result required by the law, whatever my own preferences might be. I try to remain mindful that while my court decides thousands of cases a year, each case is the most important one to the litigants involved. After all, cases are not like statutes, which are often named for their authors. Cases are named for the parties who stand to gain or lose in the real world, often through their liberty or livelihood. When I write an opinion resolving a case, I read every word from the perspective of the losing party. I ask myself how I would view the decision if one of my children was the party that I was ruling against. Even though I would not like the result, would I understand that the decision was fairly reasoned and grounded in law? That is the standard that I set for myself in every case, and it is the standard that I will follow so long as I am a judge on any court. When the President offered me this nomination, I was deeply honored. But it was not a position I had sought out, and I thought carefully before accepting. The confirmation process and the work of serving on the court, if confirmed, requires sacrifices, particularly from my family. I chose to accept the nomination because I believe deeply in the rule of law and the place of the Supreme Court in our nation. I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and laws as they are written. And I believe I can serve my country by playing that role. I come before this committee with humility about the responsibility that I have been asked to undertake, and with appreciation for those who have come before me. I was 9 years old when Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman to sit in this seat. She was a model of grace and dignity throughout her distinguished tenure on the court. When I was 21 years old and just beginning my career, Ruth Bader Ginsburg sat in this seat. She told the committee, "What has become of me could only happen in America." I have been nominated to fill Justice Ginsburg's seat, but no one will ever take her place. I will be forever grateful for the path she marked and the life she led. If confirmed, it would be the honor of a lifetime to serve alongside the Chief Justice and 7 Associate Justices. I admire them all and would consider each a valued colleague. and I might bring a few new perspectives to the bench. As the President noted when he announced my nomination, I would be the first mother of school-aged children to serve on the court. And I know that it would make Senators Young and Braun happy to know that I would be the first justice to join the court from the Seventh Circuit in 45 years. I would be the only sitting justice who didn't attend school at Harvard or Yale, but I am confident that Notre Dame could hold its own, and maybe I could even teach them a thing or two about football. As a final note, Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank the many Americans from all walks of life who have reached out with messages of support over the course of my nomination. I believe in the power of prayer, and it has been uplifting to hear that so many people are praying for me. I look forward to answering the committee's questions over the coming days. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed, I pledge to faithfully and impartially discharge my duties to the American people as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Thank you.